What is the most valued resource in Commander? Those that say card advantage, remember that drawing won't always get you an answer to avoiding lethal. Maybe you think it's mana or your library, but even with all these stripped away, you can still play Magic, at least for a little bit. No, my dear friends, the most important resource in this game is and will always be life. Electric word life, very messy too. And know that everywhere it roams free, so too stalks death. The starting life total in EDH is 40, and once a player hits 0, they are considered dead, and both they and their cards are removed from the game. That means cards attached to other things, as well as creatures stolen or reanimated, will be exiled when their owner dies. There are ways to live with less than 0 life, as well as ways to kill an opponent without dealing the full 40 damage. These would be Infect, which only needs 10 poison counters, and Commander damage, which is 21 damage over the course of an entire game from one commander. Commanders like Karlov of the Ghost Council and Rudolph Duskbringer want many instances of singular life gain triggers, but little else. The application of these differ. Karlov can remove counters to exile a threat, taking a more outright control route, while Rudolph has a clear preference for creatures, which could look like aggro. You can simply stall until you have enough to reanimate 7-drops. Life is a powerful resource, not only because losing it means game over, but because having an excess means you can use it to pay for many different types of effects. Timna the Weaver wants you to swing at as many opponents as you can, then lets you pay life equal to the opponent you swung at to draw that many cards. Paying life to draw, remove creatures, or even instead of paying mana is a powerful ability that few color combinations can utilize as well as this one can. Lyessa, Shroud of Dusk, lets you pay life to mitigate their own commander tax, ensuring that once you get the mana to cast it once, it'll be back in play no matter how often it gets destroyed. It uses a drain effect to steadily shave down life totals, while it flies over blockers and gains you life each turn. This means you get to cast 3 spells before you see a net loss in life that your commander can't return to you by attacking or blocking just once. The key playstyle to this type of deck is to keep your life total higher than your opponent's. The final and most pivotal strategy in these decks is their reliance on cards that generate value in death. Many effects need the bearer to die before they activate, and waiting for your opponent to block or board wipe is a little too inconsistent, so sacrifice outlets are required. Sacrifice outlets are used to forcibly activate death triggers, even at instant speed. Decks centered around sacrificing creatures as payment for powerful effects are called Aristocrat decks. Commanders like Teysa, Orzhov Scion, and Vishkal, Blood Arbiter, take on the burden of finding a good sack outlet by being one in the command zone. Teysa sacrifices a whopping 3 white creatures to exile any creature, and, to make getting that many a little easier, gives you a white spirit token whenever any black creature you control dies. This not only means you can sacrifice tokens to make tokens, but also sacrificing black and white creatures will let you exile a creature and make spirits, effectively reloading. Vishkal is a little less passive, eating creatures and making himself massive before swinging, gaining you ample life, then removing the counters for an effect that can even send indestructible creatures to the yard and doing it all over. This jack-of-all-trades nature really contributed to this creature's lasting popularity. As it demonstrates, there is a lot of power in being everything these decks need, providing life gain, life drain, and aristocrat strategies all from the command zone. As strong as it is, we feel Vishkal isn't the premier face of this type of strategy, so let us show you legends that encompass each of these tactics perfectly. Teysa Karlov has a doubling effect for death triggers, meaning effects that cost sacrificing creatures or effects that cause creatures to die will trigger an additional time. She also grants all of your creature tokens vigilance and lifelink, allowing the many creatures that generate tokens on death to be easy additions. Vito, Fanatic of Eklazalts, has an ability that triggers whenever you sacrifice another permanent. The first time it gains you 2 life, the second time each opponent loses 2 life, and the third time creates a 4/3 demon token. This deck craves any form of sack outlet and many things to sacrifice. Not specifying a type of permanent is very helpful given how plentiful self-sacrificing artifact tokens have become. When built around a control shell, it can easily become a danger, given how consistently these colors gain life each turn, and how viciously the removal can rip away most forms of opposition. This has all been to say, control decks aren't just blue counterspell tribal decks. Sometimes they're the life gain deck that's doing its very best to quietly keep the table under 20 and themselves past 100. The root of a control deck is to protect something, and while many fight to keep offensive permanents in play, these colors have the luxury of controlling their very own life total. Keep this in mind when assessing threats at your next commander night, and to all my Orzhov players, stay greedy. If you clicked on this to get better at the game, we hope you learned something and enjoyed yourselves. Leave a comment and send it to your friends. Now, for the rest of us, we know there is more to life gain than just resource denial. There is also the efficiency of having an excess of life to use as a currency to circumvent mechanics. Elinda the Dusk Rose is a 1/1 vampire with lifelink that gets a counter whenever any other creature dies. Then, if it dies, it creates X 1/1 vampire tokens with lifelink, where X is its power. This thing is everything the Orzhov Aristocrat wants. It loves to watch you scry away tokens to Viscera Seer, and when the time comes to beat in, you have the option to keep it as a massive, single unit, or to split it up into as many 1/1s as it was big. This flexibility may not be the most powerful, but it does make stopping this deck an eternal challenge, since most decks that beat Voltron lose to Swarm and vice versa. Best of all is the powerful passive life gain. Due to it and the tokens both having lifelink, you will never be at a low life without extensive effort on your opponent's part, letting you pay life into Erebos, God of the Dead, or Dark Confidant as you see fit. Baron Bertram Greywater creates a 1/1 vampire with lifelink whenever you create one or more tokens, but only once each turn. You can also pay a black and a colorless on top of sacrificing another creature or artifact to draw a card. Now this feels very humble, but an ability like Vampiric Rites that trades the life gain for another card type to sacrifice is very dangerous. The many effects in these colors that create a token when something is sent to the graveyard are all valuable here because each getting sacrificed to the Baron will not only create whatever tokens they would have made, but also a vampire token if you haven't made one already, and you draw a card. This is a deck that will simply outvalue other players, making for a forceful mid-range deck that holds up blockers only to sack them to draw a new hand's worth of cards at the end of the previous player's turn. We've been Rude Kaiser, and this was our take on Orzhov Life Gain. If we missed anything or have any questions, let us know below, and while you're there, let us know what you'd like to see featured in a future video. Thanks for watching!